Last week, I was hospitalized for an ovarian cyst. To best view the cyst, a CT scan with contrast dye was needed. The dye which is used for the CT scan is iodine-based. I have a known allergy to iodine. Thus, when I had the CT scan, the iodine-based dye was not administered. Without using the contrast dye, the imaging was not able to give any information about my ovarian cyst. The gynecologist explained, in order to get a better picture of my ovarian cyst, an MRI with contrast was needed. The contrast dye used with the MRI is not iodine-based. Instead, it is made from a heavy metal called gadolinium. The likelihood of having an allergic reaction to the heavy metal is rare, but there is an increased risk in people who have an allergic reaction to iodine. After consulting the radiology department, it was suggested I take prednisone and Benadryl before the procedure. I was prescribed 50 milligrams of prednisone 13 hours before the MRI. Then I was to take 50 milligrams of prednisone 7 hours before the MRI. Lastly, I was to take 50 milligrams of prednisone and 50 milligrams of Benadryl 1 hour before the scan. Right on schedule, my nurse arrived 13 hours before my MRI. She gave me 2 20 milligram tablets and 1 10 milligram tablet for a total of 50 milligrams of prednisone. Without thinking, I popped 2 tablets into my mouth. Suddenly, I thought to myself, I should be really careful. I am very sensitive to medicine. If a drug has a side effect, I usually experience it. I decided to put the third pill in my pocket. I told myself I would take it at a later time to prevent my body from being overwhelmed with the prednisone. An hour later, I fell asleep. 7 hours before my MRI, my nurse woke me up to take another 50 milligrams of prednisone. I decided it was wise to not take all 3 pills. Instead, I swallowed 2 pills and placed the other tablet in my pocket. I laid back down for the night. In the morning, I noticed I was struggling to breathe. I felt as though I could not catch my breath. I was really concerned. I thought perhaps my tracheostomy tube was plugged with mucus. I suctioned my lungs several times, but no mucus was cleared from my airway. When I got out of bed to go to the bathroom, I was extremely short of breath. I struggled to make it the short distance to the toilet. When I got back to bed, my hands were shaking. I could feel my heart was racing. I sat on the bed and tried to calm down my body. Since I use a ventilator, the hospital requires me to be hooked up to monitors which record my heart rate, blood pressure, and oxygen levels. When I got back to bed, the heart rate monitor was reconnected. My machine started alarming. My resting heart rate was in the 130s. I was immediately concerned. My heart rate is high in the morning due to a medical condition called dysautonomia. But when I sit down, my heart rate usually returns to a normal rate. I grabbed my backpack and found a bottle of medicine called metoprolol. I take this drug to help slow down my heart rate. I swallowed 1 pill. I began wondering if the prednisone was aggravating my dysautonomia. 10 minutes later, my nurse arrived with Benadryl and my last dose of prednisone. I took the 50 milligrams of Benadryl, but all 3 tablets of prednisone I placed in my pocket. My nurse noticed my heart rate was fast and my blood pressure was high. She noted it on my medical chart and then left the room. Over the next 20 minutes, my symptoms dramatically increased. My body started shaking uncontrollably. I was gasping for breath. I could only say 1 or 2 words between each breath. I searched online to see if prednisone can cause an increase or worsening of dysautonomia. The answer is yes. I called my nurse. When she arrived, I told her I was having a drug reaction to the prednisone. I told her I needed to take a drug called Ativan. The nurse placed a call into my doctor. It took 40 minutes for my nurse to return to my room with the intravenous Ativan. Shortly after being given the Ativan, my body stopped shaking and my resting heart rate dropped down to 100 beats per minute. Due to having a drug reaction, I ended up missing my time slot for my MRI. Thankfully, I was able to have the scan about 2 hours later after it was originally planned. I was given the contrast dye. I did not have any issues. For the rest of the day, my heart rate remained elevated and my breathing was fast. I am very grateful. The next day, the side effects of the prednisone wore off and my dysautonomia returned back to its normal baseline. Thank you so much for joining me. Please remember to like and subscribe down below. I hope you have a great day and a wonderful week. Bye-bye.